Look, that's me. The edgy Jester is me. Yeah, the edgy power-up isn't going to be there. Not for Fark the Electric Jester. Welcome back, I'm the Comic Foil. Oh, right, these platforms that I gotta hit. I, accidentally left the game unpaused, which is why there's 4 minutes longer than there should be built up on the timer. But that's okay, it's not like I've gone for times. As long as there's not, like, a timeout limit like there was in, like, original Sonic, which, to my knowledge, there's not. Yeah, give me that static. Give me that static shock. I should do a rewatch of Static Shock sometime, or at least, like, some of the best episodes. It's hard to do to watch through a whole old series just, like, with time, but, I want to shout out for superhero lovers, the channel, his first name is Nikhil. I want to say Nikhil Clayton. So, he's a guy that talks about comic books, especially Marvel and especially the X-Men. And I've watched him, like, do, like, funny talking about things, but recently the, like, big thing that took off for him is he did a watch-through and commentary, edited down. You don't watch the whole episodes with him, but of X-Men Evolutions. And it was really fun to revisit that show, like, through the eyes of somebody who knows X-Men really well, but didn't know this show really well. Because X-Men Evolution was, like, my first... That was, like, one of the first big ways I really got into X-Men. I would, like, occasionally see bits of, like, the 90s cartoon, but I didn't watch much Fox or whatever other channels that was on. So, like, I knew who the characters were, but I didn't watch it much. And then the first live-action movie came out, and I saw it, and I really liked it. And then X-Men Evolutions came out, and I really liked it. And after that, I started getting into the comics. So for a little while, I didn't, like, realize that, you know, I knew that X-Men Evolutions was gonna have a different take on things than the movie and than the other show, but, like, it's funny things you, like, take for granted that, like, aren't true in the comics if you're used to movies or cartoon versions of something. I mean, they're all separate continuities, so you kind of have to accept that adaptations are going to be different, and sometimes one character isn't going to be as strong in a show as... I don't just mean, like, how strong their powers are, but that can also be true, but, like, as compelling, or they can make a change that kind of undermines the point of a character. But yeah, X-Men Evolutions is really good for its time. Just, you know, ended too early. It got 4 seasons. The 4th season got cut short by, like, 1/2. And I don't know if they would have just kept going, because it seems like they had a lot more planned. Even in the last episode, they do, like, basically, like, a montage of, like, where Professor X, like, sees the future because of this encounter he had with Apocalypse, and he describes, like, what he saw in his vision, and it's basically, like, seems like... Some of it seems like stuff that, like, they knew they were never gonna do, so they just, like, showed cool stuff that could be in their future, but other stuff looks like what they probably would have done with more seasons. Things like Gambit joining the team, or Colossus joining the team. But yeah, next he's gonna do the old Teen Titans show, and also Wolverine and the X-Men, which was the next big X-Men animated series to come out. Wolverine and the X-Men is interesting because it really has, like, everything. It will just go from one big X-Men concept to another, and in just, like, 2 seasons, you cover a lot of X-Men storylines. Because it's also sort of set in medias res, also. It, like, picks up at a time where, like, the X-Men were already well established, but there was, like, a disaster, a, like, mysterious explosion, and Professor X disappeared. And it becomes kind of like, oh, well, like, where did he go, and where's Jean Grey, and like, all the X-Men start, like, scattered, so it's kind of like a big, like, getting the band back together, and some of the characters don't join back up with the X-Men until really late, or maybe even some not at all. The only weird thing with that is then when, like, a character comes in, like, let's say, like, Mojo, and as, like, an X-Men fan watching it, you have to be like, oh, so they already know who, like, this character is, but they don't know who Mojo is. Like, oh, Gambit's already, like, an established member of the team, but the like, Hellfire Club is unfamiliar to all of them. And there's a few things they don't touch on that X-Men Evolution did. Like, X-Men Evolution, they weren't super well developed, but it had a lot of, well, basically was like the New Mutants era. They used different mutants in the New Mutants era, but, like, you know, a lot of the original New Mutants show up in the, like, younger class. Wolfsbane is around for a little while. She leaves early, actually, but there's a lot of, Magma and Cannonball and Sunspot. Danny Moonstar shows up for one episode. No Karma, no Cypher, no Warlock. I believe Karma is one of the only canonically asexual characters in X-Men. You know, that isn't like a sexless robot or something. And, you know, even the robots, a lot of times in Marvel, are not asexual, and good for them. You know, pursue your happiness, Vision. Vision is fully functional. Actually, he only had kids because Wanda has reality manipulation powers. I don't think he was even really, like, there for his kids being born in the comics. They're just kind of, like, conceptually his. That's a whole interesting thing in the comics, which I like the MCU's take on that. I don't have enough friends watching the MCU anymore. I want to, like, talk all about it. I know it's not as good post-Endgame. I know, but it's still interesting. I'm not saying you, viewer, should watch it if you're not interested. But a lot of people just, like, completely write it off. And it's not that it's all garbage, it's just more of a mixed bag. And some of it is garbage, don't get me wrong. And I can see that they're kind of being, like, that there's too much of it. But also, I think people get kind of, like, all or nothing with things like Marvel, where they're like, well, if I'm not going to watch all of it, I'm not going to watch any of it. Which, you know, is your choice, I get that. I think it would probably annoy me, too, if I said, well, I'm just going to watch the movies, I'm not going to watch the shows, to, like, see a character that was expounded upon in the show. I don't think I'd be able to say, oh, well, I don't need to know that, I'll just take what the movie tells me about them as enough. I probably would be like, okay, I gotta watch the show now. But do you have to? No, that's your choice, but also it's probably the same choice I would make. The difference is I want to watch all that stuff most of the time. Also, as far as, like, TV shows, I think some people, like, earlier on who, like, tried to watch everything got a little burned by, like, what ended up really mattering. Because, like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was originally advertised like it was going to be, like, completely canon and, like, important to the movies, and same with, like, the Inhumans was, like, originally going to be a movie slated in the MCU, and it was going to be, like, set up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then it ended up just being a weird TV miniseries that premiered in IMAX for some reason, because they had already made some, like, high-budget episodes. Inhumans isn't really good. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't really good. They have their moments, but Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is just so long. And some of the Netflix series are a lot better than others. And then a lot of it, you know, turned out that, like, because Kevin Feige was the head of Marvel Studios and a different division was making all the TV shows at the time, since Kevin Feige didn't have much control over the stories there, he decided, no, none of this is going to be canon, because I don't like it. The guy who ran Marvel Television at the time also, from what I can tell, was kind of a chauvinist dick. And also, I think he's a big part of why the first season of Iron Fist is so bad and why The Defenders is really disappointing. But then in, like, the Disney Plus era with, like, the TV shows then, now that everything was under Kevin Feige, stuff like WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier and stuff, that stuff's all canon now. And for a while it was like, okay, the stuff on Netflix and the stuff like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. There's also a bunch of, like, young adult, what I like to call, like, the Freeform series, like, Runaways. There's 3 seasons of Runaways and 2 seasons of Cloak and Dagger, and that was kind of suggested to be canon. Also, Hellstrom was a show. Hey, what are you doing here? Oh, I still have the jump in cutscenes. I love when it gives me the jump in cutscenes. Don't worry, I'll be on my way soon. There, done. You're one of those replicas, aren't you? I don't know who you're based on, but I can tell you're a fake. Yeah, Fark never met Seam. So this isn't Seam, this is a replica of Seam, so that they could still have him be evil. I mean, you are right on that one, but still, man. Oh, right. He made me to fight against you. Bummer, but hey, it'll be fun. Him? Alright, bring it on. Well, if you're just gonna sit there for the first 25% of your health points... Okay, I'm trying to figure out what I need to parry here. That's okay, I know you have a phase 2. Or rather, you have like a pet dragon that jumps in for your phase 2. And where is it? Where is the phase 2? There it is. Oh, okay. Sometimes I misinterpret what the warning lines are. That's okay. I'm perfectly happy to take this fight again. But what's weird is then when they decided to do Daredevil Born Again, the new season of Daredevil, at first it was going to be kind of a soft reboot. And I guess it still is. But no, they decided, like, everything that happened on the Daredevil show is going to be canon. And by extension, everything that happened in the Netflix shows in general. Like, Jessica Jones is supposed to show up for Season 2. Punisher showed up in Daredevil Born Again. Apparently there were some, like, really big rewrites that originally it was going to be, like, really disconnected, but they decided to put in more fan service to the older show. Which I feel mixed about, because it's great to see those things back, but also, like, it makes it kind of feel like 2 different shows, because in, like, the first episode and the final episode are very disconnected from, like, the middle, like, 6 episodes, or however long the series was. Okay, do those, like... Whoops. Okay, it's alright, I have static to heal myself when I need it. Yeah, get out of here, dragon. Yeah, and you later find out in Spark's story how, like, the dragon wasn't his. This wasn't Seems like super form, it was a pet he had. They kind of, like, throw that away nonchalantly. The guy who turns out is named Megagram. I didn't know that until I looked it up later while making thumbnails, but Megagram's the guy with the big hammer. And then Karana is the archer, and Romalo is the hollow jester. But yeah, I've heard rumors that, like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is gonna get a reboot, and I don't know if they're gonna do the same thing they did with Born Again, where it was like, actually, all of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was canon all along, and the parts that don't make sense we're just gonna kind of ignore, or if it's going to be a complete soft reboot. Because yeah, by Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had 7 seasons. And by late season 5, they kind of confuse it with, like, there's time travel involved, but they kind of make it so that, like, Thanos is attacking, and they kind of the way they do it, they make it, like, it's hard to believe it's still happening in the main MCU timeline. So, like, it would have to be... They could have always just say that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is another universe in the multiverse and have, you know, Coulson and Daisy Johnson and those characters show up while time hopping in Secret Wars or whatever. It's more fun for it to be canon to the main universe and for them all to connect without having to do multiversal shenanigans. But, and I can't stress this enough, nobody cares if Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would mess up the timeline. Nobody's gonna go back and watch seasons 6 and 7 unless they're, like, doing some kind of completionist run, because that's basically what I was doing by the end of it, was like, oh, well, I want to watch absolutely everything. Like, that's gonna be fun for me for some reason. And it was perfectly watchable. The one thing they've really kept from that corner of MCU is the one guy, I don't know the actor's name, but playing Edwin Jarvis, who was Howard Stark's butler, so like Tony Stark's dad's butler, and thus the namesake for Tony Stark's computer, Jarvis, who is part of Vision. Yeah, he shows up when they're traveling back in time. Yeah, he played Edwin Jarvis in the Agent Carter show that was kind of like a sister show to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. taking place in the 50s. The 40s and 50s. But he showed up in Endgame, and that was like a cool little nod to like give him a cameo. And then since then, he like showed up in What If, and he's supposed to show up in Vision Quest, which is going to be Vision's series on Disney+. And interestingly, he's going to be playing not Jarvis the butler, but Jarvis the computer. He's going to be playing like a human projection of the Jarvis AI. Because it looks like, you know, Vision's going to be kind of exploring his like personhood in this new one. If you haven't watched anything since Endgame and you're wondering why is Vision back, there's reasons why Vision's back. It's comic book stuff. Anybody can come back. Don't worry about it. But he's going to be having some kind of existential crisis. And they're casting a lot of actors to play... to basically play all of the, like, AIs that we've seen in the series. Like, I think one of them is going to be, like, the Wakandan AI that, like, Shuri uses sometimes, which is interesting. And they got the 2 actors from The Play That Goes Wrong and the Goes Wrong show to play the 2 arm robots from the first few Iron Man movies, which, by the way, I didn't realize that those were 2 different robots in those movies, but apparently they are. There was the arm one, which Tony called Dummy, and there was the one that holds the video camera for him when he's, like, showing off testing the early Iron Man suits. That's supposed to be a different robot, which is very confusing to me. I think that's a little overcomplicated, but hey, good excuse to, like, put this funny comedy duo in there. And somebody's gonna be there as Friday, who's the Tony Hawk. Losing my mind. Tony Hawk is probably canon in the MCU, but not as, like, a superhero or anything. He's probably just still a pro skater. Tony Hawk's not a pro skater now, is he? I'm pretty sure he's been retired for a long time. Like, you can't... He's got grandkids now. You can't still be skateboarding in your 40s, I assume. I mean, I couldn't have been skateboarding in my 20s, but... I imagine there's a very small window to be doing well at pro skateboarding. Yeah, because his son is also a pro skateboarder and had a kid with Kurt Cobain's daughter, and there's jokes about how their kid is basically going to be like the white guy version of Goku from Dragon Ball Z. Is gonna have just like the craziest heritage. I mean, I guess Goku was pure Saiyan and just like raised by humans, so that's not that crazy heritage. He's just a powerful guy. Really, it would be like Ichigo from Bleach, who's like secretly part Soul Reaper, part Quincy. Bleach is such a frustrating show to me. Okay, well, I got my static heal ready. Yeah, so I'm just gonna... Okay, I was trying to just, like, tank all that, but... It wasn't enough to get me through this, and now I'm at low health again. Oh. Yeah, harder than I thought. The bosses in this mode are spongy. Yeah, now I gotta get my static back. It is 2 enemies makes this like 4 times harder. Because I can't be paying attention to both of them. Yeah, like there I took a hit. And I still haven't really earned my static back here. Okay. Okay, so I got my invincibility. I'll use it to the best of my ability, but I gotta get out of there before I run out of bar. Yeah, I'm trying not to let them crowd me just because I'll lose track of what each of them is doing. Okay, I almost got static back again. Yeah, I do have to play a lot more defensively. Okay, so I got enough static now. But I'm gonna see if I can get super going. No, let's activate static. Alright, not bad. Dude? Would you mind, like, dying? You're kind of holding me up here. Oh, don't tell me you're freaking confused because you died at the same time and you aren't despawning. It's not a case where I need to, like, destroy the body first. No, I think I got soft-locked. Okay, we'll restart from checkpoint. Okay, we're close here. Yeah, I was curious about this, if they each had separate health bars or not. Okay, so he actually, like, fell off the board now, so I'm pretty sure we did this right. Yeah, I must have just gotten confused with them dying at the same time. I wasn't sure if, like, they were actually sharing a health bar, or if it was an Ornstein and Smaug kind of situation. Seemed to be the latter. Very good. Now, if I had to tell you what post-Endgame MCU stuff you should watch, I mean, it kind of depends on what characters you really like, so, like, what kind of, like, storylines you want to follow the most, but the one I'd recommend the most is watching WandaVision. If you've seen Infinity War and Endgame, you'll be all caught up for WandaVision. And then from there, watching... If you want to watch Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which it isn't my favorite, but it's cool and it'll give you a lot more Wanda stuff. And then Agatha All Along, the series, which follows after WandaVision a lot with Agatha, with one of the other characters established from WandaVision. And then coming soon, Vision Quest, which is going to follow another plot line from those two shows with Vision and presumably with Tommy. Not even presumably, he's like already cast. That would be my biggest recommendation. I think the first season of Loki is really good, and then the second season is... Some people really like it. I was less of a fan of season 2. I think it kind of became a little bit, like, meaningless to me. Ooh. I think it doesn't really, like, deliver on its promises. The what if stuff can be really fun, and Marvel Zombies is really fun. And what's great about that is that's all Elseworld stuff, so you don't really need to, like, remember it. But if you want to watch Marvel Zombies, I'd even say just watch the one episode of What If first that introduces Marvel Zombies, because the show Marvel Zombies continues off of that storyline. But if you don't, like, it'll be fine. I mean, the thing is, these shows are usually pretty good at telling you what you need to know, even if you haven't seen everything. If you're a fan of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, of course, there's Spider-Man Far From Home and Spider-Man No Way Home. Those are great in standalone. Yeah, Penny, we have so much Marvel stuff we have to still show you, because you're still just a baby. Some people say Falcon and the Winter Soldier is really bad. I don't think it's really bad. I think just a lot of these Marvel shows, admittedly, just don't stick the landings for their finales. You can see where the budgets run out at the very end, or where COVID kind of stopped them from doing everything they had planned. Even WandaVision isn't an exception to that. The biggest exception to that, I think, actually is Ironheart, which I wouldn't say is like one of the top shows I'd recommend for Disney Plus MCU, but it's pretty good, and it has like one of the better finale episodes. I think Agatha All Along is the most consistently good Marvel show in this Disney Plus era. I mean, the most consistently good would be like Season 1 of Daredevil from the Netflix days. Netflix Born Again, Daredevil Born Again is also, I think, good. It's a little different than the Netflix era of Daredevil, but if you're a fan of that, you might also be a fan of Born Again. Does fun stuff with those characters. I like superhero legal drama, which is why I also like She-Hulk, and I think a lot of people were just being mean about She-Hulk. I wouldn't say that it's great, but also it like works really well. It's like the only Marvel show that understands that it's a show and not like a long movie. It actually has like good like episodic formatting. So then like the weakest part of it ends up being like when it needs to do a finale, but like I would totally watch another season of She-Hulk. There's like so much you could do with that still. I think Tatiana Maslany was good. I really like Iman Vellani as Miss Marvel. I think plot-wise, there's some like tough stuff with the Miss Marvel show. I think they kind of tried to do two different big storylines, and they should have really just done one, and I would have liked to see them stick to the street-level stuff first with Miss Marvel before getting into super crazy... Oh, here are the, Oh, what did they call those aliens? But, yeah, there's an interdimensional alien race, and I think they should have saved that a little bit. But Iman Vellani as Kamala Khan is so good. She's also really good in the Marvels. Maybe Captain Marvel isn't your favorite. It's not my favorite either, though also I think people are more critical of it than the show deserves. I think a lot of people took... There was a big group of people who didn't like Captain Marvel for, like, really sexist reasons, and I think just didn't like there being, like, a female superhero that was, like, really strong, and it actually using, like kind of, like, feminist filmmaking of having, like, a woman who needs to be empowered and stuff, and... but also there are things that I think aren't good about that movie, and the Marvels, like a lot of other movies coming out around that era, what they're calling Phase 5, feels very rushed. And feels very like, okay, Marvel was they were just doing too many things at once. They were, like, rushing scripts, writers weren't on set for things, so the story starts, like, feeling messy. You get a lot of weird character moments. Things feel rushed or underdeveloped. Like, even some of the movies that I think are legitimately good, like Black Panther Wakanda Forever, does, like, also suffer a little bit from this kind of, like, oh, it feels like they were just trying to rush out too many movies in a short time, and I get that for a studio wanting to do that, because Infinity War and Endgame made so much money, and people were saying, like, oh, I don't like when people say nobody was asking for this, because people were asking. There were people who, like, wanted to live in this universe forever. And wanted more stuff. You know, I kind of want to live in it forever, but I also want them to take time to, like, make it good. The problem wasn't that it shouldn't have continued from Endgame, it was that they shouldn't have rushed stuff. Yeah, checking my timer there. I think maybe next checkpoint. Oh, you got the squeaky ball again. Thank you, Allie. Allie's being a real one. She keeps distracting the dog whenever the dog's squeaking stuff. And we don't just take it from her, we trade up. We're not trying to tell her she's not allowed to have that toy. We just give her something else to do that's more convenient for us at the moment. Yeah, so this was the boss that was kind of funny because it didn't have a lot of ways to really hurt me while I was on the ground. But she really wants to play with the squeaky one, huh? At the same too, it's kind of like having a kid. I know having a dog isn't that much like having a kid, but like sometimes it's like, oh, they're like distracted with this thing right now, so like just let them have it so that I can take a break from keeping an eye on her. You know, like, I know you're not really supposed to, like, let kids watch lots of TV or, like, be on tablets and stuff, but, like, I get it. You need some time to yourself. Hi, baby. Hi, can I see that? Good girl. Oh, and Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Obviously, great movie. Makes me sad that it was a movie so great it made me not feel better about the MCU, because I was like, well, this is going to be pretty much it for the Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's like the one thing still going really well. But it's not the one thing still going really well. There's lots of things going really well. It's just messy. And, you know, as a comic book guy, I'm prepared for that in my comic book media, because comic books are always really messy. There's always creative decisions happening that are like, why would you do that? And other ones that are like, I get why you would do that, it's for money, but I don't like it. Now, if I had to tell you which post-Endgame MCU things not to watch, I wouldn't say, like, because nothing's going to, like, you know, destroy your brain or anything. But I can tell you what the worst things are. You might still have fun, you know, watching them out of curiosity. That's why I have fun watching them. Okay, so Echo. Echo showed up in the Hawkeye series. The Hawkeye series is fun, also. Just want to say. That's one that gets a bad rap. People loop that in with the later series that aren't as good, but I think it's really good. It just also doesn't quite stick its landing, but that's true of almost every other Marvel show. If I'm having fun 5/6 of the time, I think it's a good show. But that show introduced the character Echo, Maya Lopez. It was a really cool character, and then they gave her own series. Kingpin from the Daredevil show shows up in it, and is like a major character in it. And she's like a really cool character, and oh man, I wanted the world for this show. I wanted it to be great, and it just kind of... They didn't keep it to, like, anything. Also, they, like, really mystify Maya Lopez's powers. So Maya Lopez is a character, she's deaf, and she also is an indigenous person. I want to say Mohawk, and they did a lot of good, like, dramaturgy with, like, with that culture and making sure that they were, like, representing it well. My thing is, those are both two important things of that character, and I would want Maya to have those qualities in a adaptation of her for a TV show. But her power, which is, like, being able to, like, she can see anything she sees happen, she can do it. She's like Taskmaster in that way. Target acquired. Mooter? Do you mean murder? Mooter.exe fully online. Ow. Wow. Execution parameters met. Proceeding towards execution. I wondered if they were going to make a joke with murder being misspelled, but no, it's really... They really just misspelled it there. Okay, this was a fight I had trouble with Spark, but I'm going to get it now. Though I'm probably going to need to take another shot at it. Yeah. Yeah, so Echo's power in the comics, she's deaf. She's supposed to be sort of like a mirror to Daredevil, who is blind but has incredible powers with his other senses. She's deaf and has incredible intuition with her other senses, mainly if she sees something done, she can, like, perfectly replicate it with her own. She's like a muscle mimic. Not necessarily powers, you know, she can't, like, throw a tank by watching the Hulk fight, but she can, like, any kind of, like, martial artist kind of character, she can copy their fighting style. That's what her powers are in the comics. They don't even establish that being her thing in the show. And instead they kind of, like, give her a connection to her indigenous ancestors. Now, I'm not in a place to say whether or not something is, like, pandering to that demographic. I wonder if that would feel to some people like, oh, you're, like, making, like, our culture into, like, this weird magical thing that it's not. Even though, you know, there's also spiritualism in that culture and stuff. I just think it's weird. And they do a similar thing, actually, with Kamala Khan in the Miss Marvel show. So that I find odd. That's not even, like, why the show is bad, but I don't know, I feel like that's kind of part of it. The ending gets really weird. There's, like, a lot of, like, completely dropped plot threads. I wouldn't recommend watching Echo. I really... Though she's cool. Echo remains really cool. The really bad one was Secret Invasion. That's like the Iron Fist of our era. Which, to be fair, I don't really love Secret Invasion as a, like, story in the comics. I think it's kind of frustrating in the comics, and a lot of... I mean, Secret Invasion partially came to be because it came out at a time after, like, the Civil War storyline, where, like, some characters were acting so out of character that it was, like, believable that a lot of people have been, like, secretly, like, Skrull doppelgangers for years, because that became, like, the best way to explain some of these characters' actions. Though really the person whose actions I end up hating the most in Secret Invasion is Nick Fury, because... And I get them having, like, oh, showing how, like, some of the work he's done to become such a prolific spy is, like, more morally gray than we'd be comfortable with. No, I was ready for that. It's the fact that he, like, never actually has to confront it or even, like, really give an answer why he did things the way he did. I think it would be difficult to write a Secret Empire story without coming across xenophobic. Because it also... Not Secret Empire, Secret Invasion. A lot of the names of famous Marvel events get confusing because there's a lot of repeating words. They love the word secret. So I think I need to play more defensive until I can get my static up. Okay. And just, like, nothing interesting happens in that show. And then, like, when it gets to this stuff of, like, what big characters turn out to be Skrulls, and it's, like, more confusing than it is interesting. When we knew Secret Invasion was going to become a show, you know, everybody started speculating about, like, okay, what longtime characters are going to turn out to have been Skrulls for the past few years. And, you know, one of the characters they picked was kind of like, yeah, this is, like, the biggest person you could, like, make turn out to be a Skrull without it being too upsetting. But really, it's just, like, confusing now for the, like, continuity people trying to figure out, like, how long this character's been a Skrull. Secret Invasion was, like, pretty unpopular with the fans, so I think they're backpedaling some of it, of, like, what it was implying. So now they're trying to say... I guess I won't give away. You can look up if you really care. But just in case you do want to watch it, I won't give away what the, like, big twist is of who actually has been an alien. But, like, it's definitely implied that they switched at one point, and then since then they've backtracked and said it was actually much more recently. I am
drifting away.
Oh, sorry.
Drifting away. My mind is drifting. All I can see is amorphous shapes.
Amorphous? Guys, I know Brazilian dev team, and I love what you're doing, but whoever localized this into English, you need some spell checkers, guys. This is just getting silly.
Made by my own mind.
Who are you? What are you doing in my mind?
Me. I am. I. Who? I am. I am. I am Freom. 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 I can see it. My body. Yes. Stronger. Better. More powerful. Yes. You.
Freom doesn't know how to spell, dude.
You will die.
You will die. You dare bring light into my mind palace? Yeah, because Secret Invasion, as, like, a Scrolls, it was already, like, drawing on stories like Invasion of the Body Snatchers and stuff like that, which by its nature, like, was inspired by... Invasion of the Body Snatchers is very much a horror movie of its time, like many horror movies. You know, it is drawing on a certain societal fear. In this case, it was the Red Scare, and the idea of, like, your enemies being among you. Because at the time, people were afraid of, like, communist spies being everywhere, and that's kind of what Invasion of the Body Snatchers was. And being inspired by that, that's kind of what Secret Invasion is. Who can you trust? People you've known your whole life might not be who they say they are. And, like, literally, because they might be a Skrull. I do think Skrulls are just, like, kind of funny. I don't hate Skrulls. I mean, it's a case where, like, I don't even really know what the Secret Invasion show should have been, but it shouldn't have been that. This is very fun to just repeatedly parry. Yeah, it took me a second to realize these, like, little spores falling from the sky are damage blocks. Okay, you're just gonna, like, teleport and waste my meter. You're a piece of crap. Yeah, you're really not, like, giving me the chance to attack you. Okay, there's the vocals. Like, even the things that, Nando V Movies made, like, a really good point about it. That, like, even the stuff that is usually fun about a story like this, like the, like, don't shoot me, shoot him, or the, like, the good guy starting to figure out a way to tell if someone's a Skrull, like, doesn't happen. Like, they don't really use the medium to their advantage of paranoid horror. The image people show all the time is there's a character named Gaia, played by Emilia Clarke. She plays a Skrull who ends up being the Super Skrull, if you're aware of that concept from the comics or from, like, Marvel vs. Capcom. Normally, when Skrulls copy people's bodies, they can't copy their abilities or powers. But Super Skrulls are a way the Skrulls find to genetically do that. So a Super Skrull usually is, like, the most famous one is a Skrull with the power of all four of the Fantastic Four. So you got, like, stretchy flaming arms made of stone and force fields. but there's been other ones with other power combinations. So Gaia becomes a Super Skrull in the finale, and they, like... It makes sense in context of, like, what powers they give her, because it's basically them accessing, like, a whole bunch of different aliens and superhumans that have been on Earth that, like, S.H.I.E.L.D. and the other, like, secret organizations like S.W.O.R.D. might have gotten a hold of. So, like, and it's not just 4, it's, like, a bunch of things. So, like, they have, like, everybody who was involved in Endgame and, so, like, Groot's DNA and Drax's DNA and, like, the Frost Beast that escaped into Earth in Thor: The Dark World. I thought that was a funny inclusion. And then Captain Marvel, who I think shouldn't be replicatable because her power specifically came from exposure to the Space Stone, so I think that one was a little bit much doing that. I don't really mind her being so OP, and yeah, the effects during that fight are really bad. Marvel was also having a lot of back and forth with the CGI companies at that time and the, like, effects union. So the things people share, like the meme people share when they're showing how bad that show is the image of Gaia, played by Emilia Clarke, with one big beefy arm. And, like, it looks stupid, but I don't... Like, that's not, like, the bad part of the show to me. At least there's, like, one big, fun, dumb fight. It's just, like, the way it does Nick Fury is stupid. The way it does the character who turns out to be a Skrull is stupid. One other character gets done so incredibly dirty. It makes me so upset. Yeah, that took me a while because this person's very teleporty, but by, you know, focusing on defense and healing myself, it was alright. And we're back to Sunfire Forest. But you know what? I'm going to end the episode here. Thank you guys for sticking around, even if you have no intention of watching more Marvel stuff. I've given you some recommendations. I'm the Comic Foil, and I'll see you next time. We'll be done with Fark's story soon, and we'll see if Freon can take over his robot body, or transcend it, or, like, email himself to a different body that he can take over. We'll see.